interviewed for an article where the topic of it was juxtaposing answers from ChatGPT against the financial professional and some of the differences regarding advice around small business retirement planning and retirement plans in general. So
welcome to the Small Business Breakthrough Series, where each week we'll be interviewing a number of guests from the financial planning industry, where we'll be discussing financial planning, pitfalls, and benefits that will help your small business thrive. Our mission is to help you break through caps and problems that are holding your businesses back from its full potential, all while staying focused on the things that matter to you. Those things today are all about retirement. We are focused on the end game and planning out. The earlier you start those plannings, the better it is for the future. And today I would like to invite Justin Rush into our interview. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. Justin is a financial planner with Nemus Rush and focuses a lot on retirement planning, hence the reason for the topic. So are you ready to jump in today, Justin?
Let's do it.
Okay. From a high level overview, what would you say your business does? And then why did you get into this business?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it short because it is a bit of a longer story. So our firm as a whole focuses on financial planning, specifically with a focus on retirement planning. Certainly, there's some ancillary things around that we help and have conversations with, things like estate planning, tax planning, for example. But again, we're not doing tax preparation. We're not doing estate work at our firm. So those are kind of areas that we can talk about to a degree and kind of help spot potential issues. But at its core, we're working with clients around helping them manage their investments and helping them plan for their potential retirements. And as far as my own personal background, I actually never planned to be in this field whatsoever. So my original background was in software. So I went to school for computer science. I worked as a software developer for about 9 years. And then I had some, what you could call very persuasive family talk me into getting into the finance space. And at the end of the day, when I got a firsthand look at what our firm does and really just the ways that we're able to help people, get closer to their goals, really understand what they're trying to achieve and help them fill that gap to actually get there. It's certainly very fulfilling work that we do. And just being able to establish those relationships across multiple generations for the families that we work with is very, very cool work to do.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great to hear. And that leads really well into the next question, which comes into, so who would you consider to be your ideal client and what major outcomes would you see them achieving when they're done working, or as they work with you, or as they finish working with you?
Yeah, so our ideal clients are typically small to medium-sized business owners. Certainly, business owners wear many hats. A lot of them are jacks of many trades, sometimes by force than by what they would like to be doing. So as much as we can take off of their plates, especially in the finance and retirement world, we're always happy to do so. And, the answer to the other question is a little bit interesting because a lot of times the outcomes that we're trying to drive are really up to the folks that we're working with. We have different business owners and a lot of them have very, very different goals for what they want the next 5, 10, or 15 years to look like or beyond, right? We have plenty of business owners that are working towards some sort of event, whether that's a liquidity event, whether it's an acquisition, trying to get their business to a place where they can reach those types of goals. And then we certainly have business owner clients that are working on succession planning. They want to pass what they've built on to the next generation. And we have some folks that just really love what they do and they plan to do it for a long time. And they maybe haven't thought as much in detail about what those next stages are going to look like. But certainly along the way, we want to make sure that they're being as efficient as possible. And we want to make sure that have their house in order, so to speak, from a financial standpoint.
Okay. So you actually work with people very tailored and you're very customized to what their approach is, which is an amazing approach from a financial planning aspect, so that you make sure they achieve what they deserve, which is ideally what they want to work on. How would you say you do it unique from any other financial planner?
I think, and I don't want to speak necessarily too broadly from an industry standpoint, but I do think a lot of folks in our field tend to focus on maybe a little bit smaller areas. There may be some financial planners or financial advisors that are only focused on investments or investment accounts. I think something that we try to be really cognizant of is having more of that wide reaching advice in lots of different areas. So again, a perfect example would be the tax planning element, right? I'm not a CPA, I can't file someone's tax return. I wouldn't claim to necessarily be the end tax expert, but tax planning is something that myself, our team has a lot of knowledge in, enough knowledge where we can step in and spot potential opportunities. We can help work hand in hand with client CPAs to make sure that we're putting a great tax plan in place to make sure that people are paying as little as in taxes as legally possible over the next 5, 10+ years. And so I think we try to port that across other areas as well, the legal space, the other retirement planning areas, things like setting up 401ks or setting up retirement plans. We really try to have a very broad base to where we can help these folks with really whatever pops up. If we can't help ourselves directly, we like to have that Rolodex, so to speak, of resources that we can help get in place and get involved to really help for those end solutions.
Yeah. And so for you small business owners that are out there listening to this, that tax planning side of it, coming from somebody as myself who has bought and sold multiple companies, and even from a small business stage where I only had 1 or 2 employees, was doing like 500,000 a year, tax planning became a big issue. And so I'm a huge proponent of it because I've gotten bit by that bug before. And it is not one that is fun or easy to recover from because the government wants their money now, not yesterday, now, like, or tomorrow, I should say. Let's be real. You didn't start your business to feel stuck, overwhelmed, or bored out of your mind. But yet, here you are, spinning, stalled, or just chasing every shiny object just to stay motivated. And I know exactly how you feel because I used to do the same thing. But that's why I built the Momentum community for founders like you. It's for people who are ready to get serious, simplify, and build a business that actually moves forward. It uses peer accountability, and it's what I used to be able to grow my business successfully and have a great exit. Does sound like something you need? Click the link in the description below and let's have a conversation. Enjoy the rest of the show. Okay, let's go at what would you say is the biggest problem you see in your industry and how are you solving that for yourself?
I think one of the big things that we see a lot is a lack of communication across the different professionals that our clients may be working with. And I think that when we talk about being a little bit more broad, when we talk about these different areas that we can help in, I think the communication between those different end professionals is really crucial to the success of a business owner's financial life. Especially when they have multiple parties involved, a CPA, an attorney, sometimes bookkeepers that are external to the business, folks like ourselves in the financial planning space. Something that we see quite a bit is that each individual could be doing a great job on their own, but if those pieces aren't working together, sometimes you can see situations where someone's doing something they think is the right thing to do, and it's actually counterintuitive once you zoom out to see that bigger picture. So I think one of the things, again, that we really pride ourselves in is having that constant communication, not only with the client, but with the other professionals that the client may be working with. Because again, we can have certain ideas on our side from maybe a tax perspective, like we've been talking about, but the CPA is going to be looking at the tax situation from a completely different perspective. And so we might think we have a great idea, and the CPA can step in and tell us that maybe it's not quite as good of an idea as we think it is for, reasons A, B, and C. And so I think that joint communication on behalf of a client is really important to making sure that we come up with the best solutions and we're really covering as many of those blind spots that we can.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. Communication between industries, communication internally in your own companies. Those all are a huge part. The where do you see your industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? And I always love to ask, especially because it's a big part, do you see AI playing any part in the changes in the industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think we've already seen a huge shift in the financial planning and retirement planning industry as a whole. I think if you rewind 1, 2 decades, financial advisors were in more of a position where just investments themselves seem to have a really big barrier to entry, to where a lot of business owners, even just regular everyday people, right, needed a stockbroker to go and be invested in some of these companies through the stock market. I think whether it's Robinhood, whether it's Fidelity or Vanguard, those barriers have certainly come down to where it doesn't take much to go and open an investment account. And I think that's why we've seen such a huge shift. Not that the investment piece isn't important and it's not a part of what we do, but such a shift towards more of that planning mindset. And where are other ways that we can add value as part of these relationships that we have? And certainly a big part of that is these planning conversations around retirement and understanding what people are really looking for, what they want to accomplish over these next, again, any time frame could be different for different clients over the next 5 years, 20 years, and getting more into these other areas of tax planning, estate planning, and finding some of those areas where we can add more value. I think that's only going to continue. And as more and more of this knowledge is readily available, I think having more of that nuanced expertise to really figure out what are the best ways we can actually execute on this advice is going to be really important. And I certainly think AI is just going to continue to drive this forward at a quicker pace, to where compiling research, asking questions around even things like tax advice or estate planning advice is going to be easier and easier to get a hold of. I think the problem with that is having a good plan that you execute poorly can sometimes be even worse than not having a plan at all. And so I think that having too much trust in those sources can end up biting a lot of people and maybe resulting in some negative consequences. So I think it's all great, but obviously with a grain of salt, that it's not the end all be all when it comes to advice in some of these areas.
Yeah, and putting the whole faith into the AI world is definitely a bad plan. You should always take it with a grain of salt and read through and understand any of the results that are coming back, no matter what you look at. I've used a couple of fun things here recently with AI, looking for recipes, and it has not been exactly what I wanted. So tested it out, tweaked some things, have some fun with it.
And Jason, it's actually interesting that you asked that question, because not too long ago, I was interviewed for an article where the topic of it was juxtaposing answers from ChatGPT against the financial professional and some of the differences regarding advice around small business retirement planning and retirement plans in general. So I won't spoil anything, but I would be happy to share the link in case you or any of the listeners wanted to check it out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that. We'll add it to the show notes of this interview. So, hey, are you
And
ready to go into the lightning round and have a little fun?
absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to go through about 10 questions here, but they're rapid fire. They're meant to be instinctive and go as quick as you can. And there are a couple that hook people. So like, don't put too much thought, just whatever comes to the top of mind. But we'll start off with some easy ones. How about coffee or tea?
Coffee for sure.
Ah, awesome. Cats or dogs?
Unfortunately, for a lot of people, I'm gonna have to say cats.
Okay. We have both, so we're good there. What is the favorite city you have ever visited?
For me, it would be Boston.
Boston. Okay. Last song you were listening to on repeat?
Probably It Ain't My Fault by Brothers Osborne.
Okay. Yeah. If you could grab one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
I was formerly a baseball player, so I'd probably have to go with the baseball bat.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, use what you know how to use, right?
Absolutely.
If you look back at a past experience that has led you to your success today, what would that be?
I think a lot of it would be attributed to sports. I think that growing up playing lots of different sports, being part of that team environment certainly helps with not only the value of the hard work, especially the hard work when people are not watching, but certainly that team aspect when it comes to being a team player, not only within our team here internally, but certainly on the team when it comes to working with the clients that we have.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite failure that you have had?
I think my favorite failure, albeit a tough failure, when I first started in this field, I had a couple of larger potential clients that I thought were going to be slam dunk, come and work with us as part of our firm. Maybe got a little bit too confident, maybe bypassed some of the processes that I thought, because I thought this is going to be easy to land a couple of clients. And I think looking back, I was very naive and thinking that I could go off and do this on my own and didn't need any help. And it was a big hurting point looking back to have not gotten those. But I think it was a big learning lesson for just the amount of work and the amount of preparation that it takes to really earn that trust for the people that we work with.
Okay. What's a favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
There's actually one that's on our site that I quote, and I've always loved it. I believe it was Ben Franklin who said, "Knowledge pays the best interest."
Knowledge pays the best interest. Ben Franklin. Love it. Do you have a no miss morning ritual?
Outside of a morning cup of coffee, that would be the main one.
Okay. Okay. How about a favorite movie or streaming series that you love?
Favorite movie is probably The Prestige.
Prestige. Okay.
The old
And
Christopher Nolan one.
yeah, then we got last question here is what is one book that has influenced your life the most?
My favorite book is probably Good to Great, which is kind of a deep dive. I don't know if you've read it before,
Uh,
but pulling it off the bookshelf, I love it.
right there. Good to great.
I think there's a lot of great principles in it, especially when it comes to, again, the title of the book, going from good to great. And while it may not sound like a big leap, I think most people, especially those that maybe have dove into that book before, can attest that it's certainly not an easy thing to do. So that's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 5 list for sure. Because I worked at a good company before, and those that have not read the book, you can read the book and understand what I mean. So, Justin, it has been so great to talk to you today. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they're interested in having a future conversation?
People can check out our website, nemusrush.com. People are more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a note at justin.rush@nemusrush.com. Always happy to be a resource for folks, always happy to be a connector of people. So if there's ever anything that I can do that would be helpful, folks are more than welcome to reach out.
Hey, everybody, that concludes our interview with Justin Rush and Nemus Rush Wealth Management today. It has been a great conversation with Justin, and we'll have all of his information in the show notes if you didn't catch it on the audio. So thank you so much for your time today, Justin. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much.